Oh, the humanity, forgive me, Lord, for I know not what I do, nor about what I talk. As far as this Checo Perez fiasco, because again, remember, for the avoidance of doubt, that all F1 journalistic publications are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Put some respect on the name of the race. Scott Mitchell Mount et al. They always bat 1,000, don't they? And they've put out an article, put forth a thesis on one Checo Perez, saying thus that they think that Red Bull are going to do more to support Checo Perez, that they are taking some responsibility, as insinuated one Bernie Collins, legend of the Sky Sports F1 podcast. Do you remember the same thing that I'd criticised them for saying, that there's responsibility, culpability, accountability in it for the balls that are red too? Here's what the race have said, and I'll respond to it at the end because I think there are holes in and amongst all of this. The race said, why is Red Bull risking more material underperformance of Checo Perez, the man formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense? The simple answer, say the race, is that it was scrambling for any reason not to drop Checo Perez, because that by far is the easiest option. Oh, the humanity. What are we talking about? I'm going to read that out again because it doesn't even make sense as I try to interpret it, take it on face value. The race says, rhetorically, why is Red Bull risking the material underperformance, the continued material underperformance, I'll have you know, of Checo Perez? They respond to their question, their thesis. They posit that the simple answer is that Red Bull was scrambling for any reason not to drop Checo Perez, because that by far is the easiest option. What are we talking about? Here's what the race, let me expound. Here's what they put forth as their thesis. The race says that these are the core considerations. Have Red Bull as a team done everything they can do to support a return to form of Checo Perez? What do you think? Do you think they have? Have they surrounded him with the best car parts? Have they given him a setup using which he can achieve 25 points each and every single race weekend? Have they leaned into his driving philosophy? Remember, he's a street king. He understands understeer, rear limited tracks. Please see Monaco, Baku, Singapore et al., 2 of which are still to come this season, and that has to matter. Have they tinkered with people and personnel? Does he have the best race engineer to facilitate indeed a return to form? Probably not. Maybe not. Absolutely not is the answer to all of the aforementioned. Therefore, the race argue that Christian Horner and team will try to put that around him, try to develop the car in his image, therefore, because here's what's happened. The race argue, as far as Checo Perez's form, there's been a distinct drop-off, because if we're being fair to Checo, earlier on this season, at the very start of Q1, he was brilliant. He was doing everything that he needed to do. In Bahrain, he finished second. Saudi Arabia, another second. Take that, 18 points back to back. That surely is momentum. In Australia, again, a decent result, a fifth. Suzuka, he was second. China, he was third. Miami, he finished fourth. All good points, horse. So is there something to be said for this correlation, that the more that they develop the RB20 concept, the more tightly wound it becomes, unless it suits Checo Perez's fundamental driving style? Well, maybe there is, because since Imola, his form's done one of these, hasn't it? Tanked, material underperformance settings. Here's what we know. In the last 8 races since Imola, Maximilian Verstappen has scored 141 points. Oscar Piastri 126, Lewis Hamilton 123, Lando 116, Charles Leclerc 79, Carlos Sainz 79, George Russell 79. Checo Perez is languishing with 28 points. 28. Oh, the humanity. Here's what that looks like in percentage terms, and this is where it gets techie. 141 points as far as Max Verstappen's concerned. Checo, over the same period of time, is matched only 20% of Max Verstappen's points tally. That's bonkers. Of Oscar Piastri, 22%. Of Lewis Hamilton, 23%. Lando Norris, 24%. Of the rest, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz Jr., George Russell, all of whom scored 79. Checo Perez has only managed 35% of their points hauls over the last 8 races since Imola. Oh, the humanity. So maybe there is something to be said for this correlation thing, that the more that they develop the car, the more tightly wound the RB20 becomes, and the more that leans away from Checo Perez being able to drive it quick and safe. That all that Checo Perez is concerned about, therefore, isn't absolute performance or pace in absolute terms. All that he's concerned about is drivability. Similar conundrum to what Scuderia Ferrari are facing as far as Charles Leclerc. Oh, the humanity. Maybe then Red Bull have some work to do, eh? Maybe then they need to adjust their approach as far as Checo Perez is concerned, not least as far as the development of the car. Maybe they need to unwind for some of those upgrades that have come post Imola, make it easier to drive, therefore, for the street king who likes understeer, who goes well around rear limited tracks. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe, therefore, I have been too harsh up till now as far as my damnation of Checo Perez's material underperformance season to date. So then Christian Horner is saying, apparently to the race, that they're going to make changes, support the Mexican Minister of Defense more, unwind for some of those upgrades, potentially change some of the personnel around Checo Perez. New race engineer potentially is what that would look like. Oh, the humanity. But yet and still, I feel like the race are missing something. They throw completely out the theory that Liberty Media and Carlos Slim are indeed bankrolling Checo Perez as a second driver at the balls that are red. Remember, the rumour is that Greg Maffei got involved and said, do not get rid of Checo Perez before October the 27th. That's the date of the Mexican Grand Prix this year, because if you do, sales will tank. Live audiences will, of course, not be too happy. They have come and have purchased tickets to see their hometown hero. If Checo Perez is not there, you are misrepresenting the sport. You are telling them that they're going to get something that they will not get. Hence why the rumour and speculation, if that's something to be invested in, is that Liberty Media advised Red Bull against getting rid of Checo Perez before October the 27th. The race concur that potentially, as far as Checo, this might be something of a timing difference. Remember, there is an autumn break after the tracks that he's supposed to go well around this year, being Singapore as an example. Maybe you give him that chance, because Christian Horner's tone around the circumstance, the soul for Checo Perez's ills, was timing, was it not? So too Dr. Helmut Marko. He said, this is clear. What's clear is that our drivers lineup is solid and will not change before 2025, meaning therefore as at January of 2025 it could all be changed. Christian Horner alluded that much to, that this might be just timing difference. Indeed, Checo Perez serving himself a sort of stay of execution. But why would they do that? Because you know me, I'm invested in the hows, the wheres and the whys. Why would they do that? And surely it makes sense that Carlos Slim potentially is bankrolling the $30 million per year that he brings to the team, the interconnection, the sponsorship with F1 TV as an example that some people have spoken about, potentially bankrolling the bonuses that the Red Bull team back at the factory are due to get if indeed they win themselves a Constructors' Championship. It surely at this point makes more sense to get rid of, to jettison Checo Perez and bring in a Danny Rick or a Yuki Tsunoda. The stop loss is there. Surely you just roll the dice. what the race are putting forth as a thesis. Of course, it makes sense. They're god-tier journos. However, I think they are missing a trick. Joanna, what are you saying? I hope you're good. Living on the edge. Sergio's just struggling to develop with the car. Exactly that. The car develops in one direction and becomes more tightly wound, more difficult to drive, and suits his understeery style all the less. That's why he's struggling and trying to push to get the performance out the car that he just doesn't suit as far as its handling dynamic. That's the truth. Cheaper, the constructors could be over by Mexico, and this is the problem, Cheaper. Why would you not get rid, if you are Red Bull and acting in terms of with your sporting endeavour constructors championship in mind? This makes no sense for me. Yeah, they can change a couple of things. Of course they can, but why not change the driver? Fundamentally, it doesn't make sense. And if you go and listen to the podcast on the race, you can hear them in real time trying to wrestle with it and solve this automotive Rubik's Cube that ultimately, ostensibly, makes no sense. That they've kicked the driver problem can down the road some more. They could have solved for it very easily, brought in a Yuki Tsunoda or a Danny Rick or a Carlos Sainz Jr. who is, or was at least, available at the time. Like, what are we doing here? Money, money, money must be fun. Joanna, I think you've nailed it. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills. Follow the money, and that will help you understand the root cause analysis in any context. So whilst the race have written a brilliant article and done a brilliant podcast trying to diatribe and deep dive, trying to get to the bottom of this, why they've kept themselves Checo Perez, ultimately though, it still doesn't make sense. And here's the clincher. If you compare and contrast the intonation and verbiage before them having made their decision and after, the tone, the vocab, the syntax are in stark contrast. Remember, Christian Horner said this not long before they made their decision on Monday this week and had their meeting at London. Christian Horner said around the constructors title, we can't win, we can't run a race with only one leg. There's not better phraseology. That's very representative because now Maximilian Verstappen is fighting a constructors battle by himself on several fronts. McLaren are there. Mercedes are now there too. Ferrari will be there very, very soon. Maximilian Verstappen now more than ever, as at the 2nd of the 8th 2024, can no longer fight a constructors battle by himself. This is convergence settings. The other cars are quicker, McLaren particularly, right? Even Mercedes, you can make an argument, were they not quicker in race trim around the Belgian Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix? Ergo, Maximilian Verstappen cannot fight that battle on so many fronts, not by himself. No, not anymore. This is convergence settings. We are heading towards the end of a rule and reg sec. And if there is a truism that exists in Formula One, it is that convergence in extremis will always happen in those circumstances. So I say all that to say this. Compare the market. Dr. Helmut Marko was saying he has a brilliant opportunity at Belgium, having nailed it on P2, to put this decision making beyond reasonable doubt, to take it out of our hands. Helmut Marko said afterwards he had a fantastic opportunity. However, he did not take it. The verbiage was telling you everything that they were about to do. Christian Horner was going to get rid. So too Helmut Marko. They had consensus because, of course, Checo Perez's material underperformance season to date makes the decision for them. However, we know now that on Monday, when Dr. Helmut Marko, consultant of Red Bull GmbH, flew into London, they made their decision and it was a complete U-turn. My question to you, therefore, is this. This is what I'm submitting to. What has changed? Every single word that came out of Christian Horner's mouth in and around the Belgian Grand Prix, Dr. Helmut Marko too, was thus: you have a challenge, Checo Perez. This is your last opportunity, your final chance. Nail it then. Force us to keep you. What we can't do, for the avoidance of doubt, to reiterate the aforementioned, said one Christian Horner, team principal of Red Bull Racing, we can't run a constructors race only on one leg. What happened between then and now? Why all of a sudden they're so keen on keeping him? Rumour and conjecture, speculation is that Liberty Media might have gotten involved. Remember, Checo Perez has himself a documentary just coming out, and it's not a good look if that documentary is running on Disney Plus. Not long after Red Bull have just jettisoned the Mexican Minister of Defense. The optics, therefore, are not fantastic. I suspect that somebody got involved, whether that's Carlos Slim, Liberty Media, Greg Maffei, or a combination of all of the aforementioned, because there is no way that you can pitch to me on sporting grounds that Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko made the decision not to promote Yuki Tsunoda, not to promote Daniel Ricciardo, and not to promote Liam Lawson, and instead chose to keep the materially consistently underperforming Mexican Ministry of Defense, the chap that they call Checo Perez. The man who can't even get out of Q1. The man who's been roundly outperformed in qualifying by Logan Sargent, who is driving a Williams. Make it make sense. Max for Mercedes, please. I really don't like Red Bull anymore. I am just waiting for Antonelli announcement. Red Bull is a lost cause. They're gifting the Constructors' Championship to whoever will pick up the pieces. Money talks. Red Bull, SH1T Watts. Tired of hearing this team. Christian, I'm with you guys. I am with you guys, but it's a story and it's interesting. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. You grow and you develop via the stairs, but you fall and lose by the escalator. You know those ones? By the lift. Your ascent is step by step, building block settings, but your fall, the diminishing of an empire, is quick, instant even. Is this not what we're seeing in real time? As far as the bulls that are red, it's bigger now, is it not? Checo Perez's material underperformance, Jonathan Wheatley leaving. I saw another article saying that Jonathan Wheatley's loss might have more consequential downside ramifications than even Adrian Newey's. That tells you who you're dealing with. Surely now, more than ever, Christian Horner needs to make some decisions with a sporting endeavour, accolades, achievement, Constructors' Championship, front and centre of his mind. RB's falling apart in slow-mo. I don't think it's in slow-mo anymore, Christian. I think they're expediting for their downfall in real time. Anyone else think it would have been better off retiring at the end of 2020? I don't hate it, Rexy. At the end of 2021, when he was incredible at times. Again, lack of clutch gene, you could argue, as far as Mexican Minister of Defense. But Turkey and Abu Dhabi, at the very least, he showed and proven was indeed instrumental in deciding who was winning, who ended up winning the World Drivers' Championship that year. But again, look, for the avoidance of doubt, F1 is a game where all that matters is what have you done for me lately. You're only as good as your last race, your last performance. And if that's the metric upon which we are measuring one Checo Perez, then surely you've got to get rid. I say all that to say this, for the avoidance of doubt. There is less risk in jettisoning, getting rid of Checo Perez than there is in keeping him. The guys and girls at the Red Bull factory in Milton Keynes must be biting their nails. They must have been disappointed, throwing tomatoes at the stage on hearing their decision. All of a sudden, a 180 turn to keep one Checo Perez in that second seat at Red Bull Racing. Makes no sense, at least not on sporting grounds. But it is what it is, eh? Good luck, Red Bull. Some have joked that the day that you announce that is the day that we can congratulate McLaren on winning their first Constructors' Championship in a while. Oh, the humanity. It is what it is. A story. I'm sticking to it.